lights usually stay off.
Yeah, I think he has to keep them on. Yeah, he has to keep. Hi, I'm Kathy Johnson, and welcome to Town Talk. I have a guest with me today. His name is Richard James Luby. Mr. Luby, and I'll say Richard, is founder of Talk the Walk, Disability and Inclusion Consulting Services. I want to say welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the show.
Hello to the audience.
Yes, and hello to everyone out there.
Yes.
One of the first things I want to ask, Richard, is can you give our audience a little background of what your organization is about, a little something about yourself, and we can proceed from there.
Absolutely. Once again, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
So a quick introduction of myself. I'm a local Seymour resident for many years now. I have a background professionally within disability inclusion, but more personally, I have cerebral palsy myself, and also OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. So I've taken my life lessons and struggles and accomplishments and developed Talk the Walk. It's a disability inclusion consulting services that helps the communities become more inclusive. That revolves around individual services, working with an individual maybe to be career ready and do job readiness training. Also, I work with schools and universities to do enrichment programs or enrichment development, and also with companies to help build hiring initiatives for people with disabilities.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's quite an undertaking. Can I ask you what led you into focusing in that direction and forming an organization such as yours?
Well, absolutely. Kind of a little backstory. So I was lucky enough to have the ability, I like to say, of cerebral palsy. It helped frame the man I am today, and it helped me understand some of the things that other individuals in similar shoes need. I was lucky to work at a company known as Ability Beyond out of Bethel, Connecticut, and I started as an employment specialist there. That was my first role, where I worked face-to-face with clients and realized and helped build their strengths and enhance their weaknesses to help them find competitive employment. One of the roles for me there was to help identify possible job opportunities for them. So I had to go out into local communities, work, and based on their strengths, help identify roles for them once again. And I gravitated to that, more communication skills and being able to build relationships. After that role, I was promoted to their business outreach specialist, where I was kind of the spokesperson for the company. If the company was going out into a new service area or new community, I would go to local chamber events and give the introductions of our services and our clients.
Well, that's very interesting undertaking. And how do you do individual clients, or do you go to big organizations to tap into your services? How does that work? Do you seek them out? How does that work? The actual mechanics.
Absolutely. So the answer is yes, all of the above. So it all depends on the need or the individual themselves. I specifically usually work with in groups, whether if it was more individual, like group events for schools, once again universities, doing those job trainings or those job readiness programs to help do interview prepping, also do resume building and things of that nature, helping with soft skills to get an individual or a group of individuals prepared to advocate for themselves while on the job, to help them identify the job, secure the job, and then also build those relationships while on the job with management or other coworkers. So it runs the gamut. Yes, I work with individuals as well. So if a family or an individual needs help, maybe identifying a role, I'd be more than happy to help them out, but based on their needs. I only work on based on their needs. Because the plus here is, as I do go to companies and help build relationships to help them identify qualified candidate pools, I'm always looking to build that candidate pool. So as I build relationships, there might be an opportunity that was not there prior for somebody that I know.
Right. Now what's coming into my mind as you're explaining is that I'm imagining that you're coming into my office. I own a company.
Yes.
Or anyone that owns, and you're saying to the employer, I want you to hire this disabled person. In a perfect world, I guess you wouldn't be needed.
Yes, yes.
It would be so wonderful if a disabled person could walk into an employer, sit down, and apply for a job and be accepted as they are. And how do you get an employer to believe in what you're doing, to want to take on a disabled person? And what the employer may say, what's in it for me?
Absolutely, and I think that's the realistic, or the realism that everybody needs to understand, that it is what is in it for me. The reality is we want to break down that barrier. So one of the things that I do offer is I can go into a company and do disability, introduction to disability, or disability 101, really understanding what it means to be considered disabled. And the important thing here is I'm showcasing the abilities beyond the disability. A lot of times we're labeled. Individuals such as myself were labeled. When I was a kid, I was the kid with a disability at the starting point. I was not Rich Luby. So I was always trying to find ways to be looked at beyond my disability. And luckily for me, I found humor. So if I can make somebody laugh, they were laughing. They weren't noticing the way I walked or certain things like that. So the important thing is to showcase that, yeah, somebody may have a disability, or I like to say once again, the ability of OCD or cerebral palsy, but showcasing the things that they bring to the table and how they actually affect, in a positive aspect, the business drivers behind a company.
Right.
So, for example, when we talk about a company, you need to realize that I think stats say now, Department of Labor, they're saying, I believe it's 73% of individuals with disabilities are unemployed. 73%.
Yes.
Recent statistics. Now, of the stats that the people that are having or do have jobs, shall I say, they're usually underemployed. Okay, they're underutilized.
Right.
So the reality is, you have a whole workforce that is untapped and underutilized, that are very capable and qualified for many of these roles. A lot of people, unfortunately, are stuck in or misunderstood of the idea of a disability. So let's be honest, even with myself, with cerebral palsy, once again, when I hear, what do you think of when you have a disability? Sometimes I think somebody less fortunate than myself, or less capable of doing something.
Yes.
And the reality is, they might think of that far case of an individual less fortunate or not capable of doing something, but the reality is there's a huge environment of individuals with differing abilities.
Yes, and I guess it's your job to show how. I see you lost your microphone.
Yes, I did. It's
Wait
quite
a
all
minute.
right.
We have a technical difficulty.
Thank you.
I want to get an idea that my producer can hear us. Okay.
Hello?
We're
Okay.
good. Wayne Johnson, my husband, says we're good to go.
Hey, when we're live, things just happen, you know?
Well, that's right,
Yeah.
and we can wing it.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. So what I was about to ask you is, how do you convince an employer that the person is capable of a particular job? How do you match people up?
Okay, so one thing, that's the area of job developing. So once I meet with a client or a group of individuals, understanding, once again, their strengths, and everybody's individualized, understanding their strengths and actually marrying their weaknesses too, to help enhance their weaknesses. You want to be sure that the person that you're going to sell, in essence, complements the needs of the company. So like you said, what is in it for me? The reality is the company still has to go about its ways and needs to make the profit and be productive. And the reality is you can be very productive, and a lot of times even more productive than you usually are. So what I normally do is I would meet with a company, kind of get an understanding of them before I go and introduce a specific client or a group of clients that I had in mind.
Learn their needs.
Learn their needs, because I think it's sales, okay? The issue with a lot of people that sell, they might be great at communicating and selling a product. I know the product in and out. I know what the pros, the cons, and I know how it could be a good product. A lot of time, they're so focused on the product itself that they don't have the opportunity to really listen to the needs of their possible audience or the buyers.
I would suspect that connecting with the representative of the company is extremely important. Connecting as individuals, in a lot of cases, they have to like and trust you as you're presenting this situation. Now, one thing that you talked about was teaching teachers or something like that.
Yeah. So when we spoke in the past, one thing that I like to do, there's so many different facets. So if it's enrichment programs, I'm usually working with schools, universities to help build enrichment programs and introduce to the students in interactive ways. When it's working with providers or other community providers in the area, I like to come in as, an experienced trainer to assist with their employment specialists, their job developers, and showcasing all the different avenues that you can take or fine-tune to be better off for your clients.
Now let's start. I want to start from the smallest situation to the biggest corporation, and how I mean that is.
Okay.
Let's talk about special needs children who are in our public school system. And if I were to introduce you to the superintendent of schools in Oxford, or you were to meet the Board of Education in New Haven, or any towns that have a program for people with special needs, what could you offer them? What kind of services could you offer them, and why would it be in their worthwhile to want to bring you on board to help with special needs or disabled or children?
Yeah, that's a great question and a huge topic for me. So I developed what's called just a mentoring program, all right? And a lot of times within the school systems, individuals with disabilities who are identified with a disability are funded to the age of 22 years old. Up until the age of 22, the school system is in charge of their day-to-day and helping them build into a better person, and up until the age of 22. Once the age 22 happens, resources are cut. They're now left to essentially fend for themselves. So whatever they took in up to the age of 22 within the school system, talking about the families and this individual, now they are left to fend for themselves. What I would like to offer is to complement the already good work that has been done and continues to be done, is to be that mentor on site for a school, to work with the transition coordinators, the counselors, and the teachers, but also bringing in these families that are sometimes not always informed to the best of their abilities. And so working with these students, let's say sophomore year all the way to senior year, where I'm mentoring them and helping them build their educational goals and reaching those educational goals, but also complementing that with outside assistance with career readiness. So identifying, is your child ready for school, college, the secondary classes, or are they career ready? Helping them build that resume, doing the interview prepping, and getting them a resume or a job so that they are situated when graduation does come.
So in a sense, you would follow this child from kindergarten all the way on up, let's say, or I don't know what grade you would start in.
My guess, and I'm sorry to cut you off, my guess would probably be the best is to start meeting them either freshman or sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
Yep.
So you would start that year, and it would be actually, I don't like the word headhunter, but you would start to get to know that person, start to see their strengths, start to see what direction they want their families and they were going in, and be just another help for them when they leave high school to be able to be employed, to be able to get into the whatever you see. By that time, I would say by that time you've known them very well and know just how to place them.
That's the thing, is building a relationship not only with the teachers, the counselors, and the student, but even more importantly, maybe even the family, that they work a 9 to 5, they have bills to pay. So a lot of times there might be miscommunication or not as well informed of the opportunities beyond high school. They don't think of it because it's not now.
Right.
The reality is, 2 years in high school goes by very quickly. So keeping them informed and being that bridge between the school system and the family life, and helping them identify the resources prior to them needing them, is the most important aspect.
Now, you seem to know a lot about, I'm ignorant of the education system. I've never been deeply involved, so I don't know what is offered and considered special needs. What I would say is, would you be helpful to all kinds of special needs? What do you know about what a special needs student is? Or in my time, it could be a person with ADD, or it could be a slow learner, or somebody who doesn't grasp their work as fast as others. I don't know what that would be.
Yeah, well, so no, the reality is here, this could be utilized, I think, for students of all abilities. I mean, it could be at-risk students, kids that are threatening of of possibly dropping out and things of that nature. I'm very familiar with the realm of disability, and I feel as though that it is a definite necessity, and it runs the gamut. The ADA definition of a disability is if something affects your life function, your daily life function. So that's a very vague definition. It could be anxiety, it could be depression, it could be a cancer survivor, asthma, all the way up to more physical disabilities such as mine, cerebral palsy.
Well, that's very interesting. I know you said you have a sheet that explains all this.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that, and then we can go on to some of the higher levels of like the big corporations and things like that you might go to, like PepsiCo you mentioned.
Yep.
But can you explain your sheet to me?
So for the mentoring program?
Yes.
So just a snapshot of it, it would be really doing an assessment, an understanding of the educational system that maybe I'd be collaborating with, identifying the resources already put in place, the individuals who are the transition coordinators, the counselors, and then specifically identifying the population or the individuals that may need these services. And then coming together and understanding what things need to be put in place to make sure that this mentoring program is a success. And then after identifying the students, for, let's say a sophomore year, really taking that year to build that relationship, maybe during a study hall, just getting to know them, their daily life, their daily structures, their aspirations, their likes, their dislikes, and just gaining that trust and that understanding that, I'm here for you. And throughout the time, we increase more of an understanding based on their needs of, okay, what kind of school did you want to go to? If school is not for you or it's not something you want to do, what type of career are you looking for? And then we start to build those career development skills as we go along.
And how would you clash with the guidance counselor? How would that segue or complement each other and not get in the way of guidance or anything like that in the school, if you're following me?
No, I am. I think some people may be listening who are in the school system may think that this might be a clash. I think it's more of a complement of resources, or maybe just bringing the attention to the resources that they already do very well. But let's be honest, the school system is flooded with students, and a lot of times don't engage the parents as much as they can, and it's maybe not their fault, maybe the parents aren't as engaged. So what I can do is showcase all the great things that are happening for this student and helping the parents to identify and realize that, and then helping them to build the motivation to be more collaborative with the school.
Right. And I would say this, I would venture to go there because I know a little something about disability in my own family and all. I would say that the fact that that you have a disability, I think that plays well to others who see that you are successful, you are communicating, and you have gone beyond. Do you follow what I'm saying?
No,
does that play into it, or am I stepping in bad territory?
No, you're not stepping in bad territory. Let's be honest. When somebody is being told something, the first thing is, well, what do you know? You're not in my shoes. Yeah. And granted, I'm never in anybody's shoes, and I'm not saying that you need to have a disability to be good at what you do. There are plenty of people in the same realm that do very good things. But the fact that I do have a disability, and it is very noticeable, I think helps me to build that relationship and that trust with like-minded or similar-shoed individuals.
Well, that's interesting too, because what comes to my mind is that when you come before, many times when they're with my son, when he, as many who know me know that he was a brain injury survivor.
Yep.
Many times, the person going in to sell him to an employer that he's capable of doing a good job and working and being employable is completely, well, I don't know what word to use, normal, looks like everybody else's, and I think that they can't sell my son as well as somebody who can actually really relate to the situation he's in many cases. I mean, I'll go there.
No, I mean, that could be the case. Once again, I think there are people that could do the job very well. The one thing that I think I have the upper hand is because I was in similar shoes and still and always will be, is individuals with disabilities are very innovative. They have to change with the times, and if they don't change with the times or find a workaround that the average or quotable, you said, normal individual, their day-to-day, we are always looking for ways around to benefit or help ourselves. So I'm able to put myself in those circumstances and say, well, somebody with a disability, cerebral palsy or something, it might not be as easy as you're saying. So if I was on a committee or something along those lines, yeah, absolutely.
That's very interesting. And again, another malfunction. I'm going to have to tell the producer that he just didn't. Here, we'll have to.
Well, every now and then, if you see me doing this, I'm not nervous, folks. I'm just checking my tie.
No, that's all right. We just have to roll with it. We just have to roll with it. Maybe you're caught on your arm.
There we go. We'll put it forward then.
We'll put it more forward there. Yes. So let me see if I have my train of thought. So now, this is where you start out locally. Mm-hmm. But then we did discuss when I first met you that you also go to big corporations. You mentioned PepsiCo and places like, you mentioned big organizations.
Yes, so great segue. So in my past role, the last role I had at Ability Beyond, once again, great company, great stepping stone for me, helped me build my skills and enhance my skills. I was their director of partnership development. So what I did is I helped them found their consulting arm called Disability Solutions. And it's very similar to what I'm doing on my own now, is we worked with large corporations to help build these hiring initiatives. One of the corporations was PepsiCo. So what I did in that role was go to the designated locations, their distribution centers, specifically Minnesota, Twin Cities, Houston, Texas, Las Vegas, Nevada, and just before I left to go out on my own, it was Salem, North Carolina. And what we did is we did a work task analysis. And I'm saying this is because this is what I'm doing on my own as well now, is I would work with a company to identify specific roles that are needed. Let's say they had 50 to 100 openings. I would do a work task analysis of this role, learn the ins and outs, the understandings. What does it take to be successful in this position? After analyzing all the information, I would then find the qualified candidates in talent pools. So I would go to local universities. In the past, I've worked with Wounded Warriors and did job training with the Wounded Warriors and helped identify numerous different talent pools of individuals of all abilities.
Well, that's wonderful, and I'm glad you mentioned Wounded Warriors, because there are so many coming back with brain injuries, especially from roadside bombings and losing limbs and all this, and we're constantly hearing that our government isn't doing enough. So when an individual like yourself comes forward and is brave enough to start your own business and start from the ground up, doing the hard work of convincing companies, individuals, school systems to allow you to help have jobs for these people is amazing, because there's too many out there that need an advocate. Now, you mentioned to me something about the big companies. There's some government thing that behooves them to do this.
Exactly. And
what's in it for them?
Yeah, and once again, like I said, let's be realistic. Everybody's saying what's in it for them. Now, so what the good back in the day, I like to say, is a lot of times when you hired an individual with a disability, it was more of a charity aspect. It's a good thing to do. It's a good feel thing to do.
Yeah, we'll sit him in the corner. We'll give him some widgets to touch.
Yeah, and even if they had a more fulfilling role, it was still a good charity thing to do. Now the government has. They have tax breaks for hiring individuals with disabilities. I never like to lead with that, because I don't like to see people just doing it just for that. Right. But it's a good starting point and talking point, because the reality is what is in it for me? It's business drivers. So if they're able to get money back by working with individuals with disabilities, a great thing. But more importantly, kind of what you were talking about, if you're a federally contracted company and you're federally contracted, if you receive as little as $10,000 a year from the government, you have hiring benchmarks. It's called 503 regulations and 4212 regulations. 503 is saying you need to hire 7% of your workforce considered disability.
Right.
And throughout your departments, not within just one department, throughout your organization. The 4212 is saying you need to hire veterans with service-related disabilities, kind of what you were talking about before.
Sure.
So it's a great complement. So now, if you need to hit these hiring benchmarks, and so this is no more as a charity. It needs to be done.
Yeah.
And so this is a really good talking point to start with the companies and to showcase. I don't like to push it, because it almost talks about compliance, and it's almost like a threatening aspect.
You have to approach it properly.
Properly, absolutely, and you have to say it's a compliment, because what I like to do is talk about stats have shown the higher retention rates of individuals with disabilities. They end up staying longer, and if they're staying longer, your onboarding costs go down. So you're saving money that way. Some companies are afraid of, oh, well, the accommodations, these reasonable accommodations. I don't want this one person to get a reasonable accommodation, and then the employee who is considered not disabled to say, well, why does he or she get that?
Oh, yeah.
The reality is a lot of these accommodations become universal designs, which help productivity throughout.
If you can get them to think open-mindedly like that.
Exactly.
And that brings me to the very difficult task you've taken on. I would imagine that you have to have a lot of patience. You have to be able to know that you might see 50 people and get 50 organizations and get 2 organizations that are interested in that. And the other question in my mind is, I want you to tell our audience how you give the employer a comfort level of that you have screened this person, they're capable of the job you're placing them in. It's not that you're coming in and saying, well, oh, yes, I think he can do that job. But you sit him there. How do you present yourself that you know exactly what you're doing and you're placing the person, because you certainly don't want to set anybody up for failure or the organization?
No, great question. That again. So yes, you don't want to set anybody up for failure on both sides. That kind of goes back to saying you need to make sure that the individual you're bringing on to this company complements the needs of the company. So if I'm just fitting somebody in just to cross them off my box or a list, it's inevitable that's probably not going to work out.
Right.
So 2 things here. One is I offer trainings on how to access the qualified candidates. So building relationships with nonprofit providers in the area and doing screening processes and showing that, all right, I have a relationship with this company. They want to hire 20 individuals within the disability community. These individuals that you're going to bring to me, they have to be qualified. And then so they do their initial screening, these providers, okay? Mm-hmm. They bring the clients to me. I also do an initial screening. And what I like to do is to set up almost meet and greets or with the company, like a day so the employers can actually meet the individuals, the providers, and because you want a cohesive team. Right. What I ultimately would like to do when the initiative is going well and we're hiring individuals and people are hired on and more people are coming in, I want there to be a relationship with the provider that the company doesn't need me anymore. Mm-hmm. There's just a cohesive wheel of, okay, we have 20 more openings. They talk to the provider and they say, do you have 20 more candidates? And it's just a cohesive wheel. I want to be able to step back. But what we have to do is we have to train their workforce on how to utilize local providers, how to gain access to reasonable accommodations, how to get access to job coaches from these providers and these state agencies to come on the job and assist the candidates and the employers through this transition.
Now, that was a key thing that you said, job coaches, because that was my next question. My next question was, there are always going to be people, especially with brain injury, because brain injury is a lot different than some other injuries in that a brain injury survivor can take years before they get past certain behaviors and things that they can be left to their own devices on a job. I know that in the brain injury world, which is what I can relate to, mm-hmm. that there are organizations that know that this person can empty pails at the gym, wipe things down, but they also have damage in the frontal lobe, and I need to be with them in case they have a little meltdown and get frustrated. There's little things like that. A lot of employers do want the assurance that the disabled person is not someone that they're going to have to watch over constantly.
Yeah.
And that's that. How do you gauge that? That's got to be.
So what I like to do, just like when I screen the individuals or the clients to make sure that they fit the need, you have to screen the providers, because like you said in the past question was, you don't want to set the person up for failure, but also if I'm running a business, I don't want to set myself up for failure, because
Right.
it is all about a good impression. So I want to make sure that there are rock star candidates, but also rock star providers that can assist with those services. And they need to be held to certain standards. If you want an initiative to work, you need to make sure that people are hitting certain tasks and are held accountable. So
Right.
if there's a provider, and even if, let's say, the provider's good, but they realize the job coach isn't good, you have X amount of time to get a new job coach in there, because we're
Right.
not going to put up with it.
Now, how do you know who a good job coach is? Are you involved in who's going to be a job coach? Do you, when you do this, is there training? Is that what you mean sometimes when you say teaching the teacher? Or?
Yeah, so I mean, in the initial stages with an initiative, whatever it may be, but normally with these hiring initiatives, if I'm helping a company and provider develop it, I'm identifying the perfect fit of provider with the company, and then the initial stages, I will hold like a little interview. Okay, who are the type of job coaches, and considering for this provider, if they need to make a good impression, they realize that, so they're going to give me their best job coaches for this role.
I see.
And then I would do an interview process and say, okay, this candidate I think is good for this, absolutely.
Okay, so I would say, I'm a mother. I have my son and all, and I would say he's in with a provider who is providing him with an independent living skills teacher, and also pre-vocational part of his ABI waiver program.
Yeah.
And now they're hiring people as job coaches. Okay. I know that sometimes I've found in the past, and these providers are very good, but sometimes the job coaches, I don't know how much training they have, and I don't know how much they really care about being there, or if they're glorified babysitters. You come in and have the skills to give them some pointers on how to do this kind of thing?
Yeah, so that's kind of something else that I offer, is the train the trainer. So based on my expertise and building these initiatives, but also working in prior roles as the employment specialist and doing the same type of tasks, I can come in and kind of give you an idea of, okay, how are you doing things? Okay, these things are doing great, and you want to celebrate and compliment where you can, but then also say, well, why don't you fine-tune some things? Here's a better way to approach an employer. Here's a better way to work and enhance your relationships with your clients, the face-to-face interactions. Yeah, that's a train the trainer trainings that I do offer for providers and state agencies.
Now I'm going to say something that you may not want to answer the question.
Oh, okay, uh-oh. Hot seat.
No, and it may be just rhetorical.
Okay.
On my part, because I live listen, my son is doing beautifully, and this show is not about him. I'm very, very fortunate that he's 18 years out from a brain injury when we didn't think he would function at all. And that's a wonderful thing, and I thank God every day for that. But he's also been in situations where he's been exploited.
Yeah.
He's also been in situations where there are people that the state are paying for, and they're not really helping him. They're just there because they can't get employment anywhere else. They barely get paid any money to do that job. So you're either taking the job because you've got to get some job, or your heart is really in it and you care about those people. Very difficult situation. I'm going to ask you, how do you sense that when you go to an organization? How are you as a disabled person thinking about that? That's going to be a little bit of a part of what you may run into.
Yeah, the reality is I'm doing it because I'm building a business, but I'm passionate about this, and I've been in similar shoes. My family has gone through similar things, so I know what a lot of the families are looking for. And because I also utilized the services as a young kid, I know what I liked and didn't like when I had somebody coming in. And so it's hard to gauge how they'll be down the road, but you kind of get almost like if I was to interview you for a job. I'm always judging the person walking through the door. So when it comes to that, I would say some of the quick things is, were they late for the training? When they came to the training, were they prepared? Mm-hmm. Were they interacting? Mm-hmm. Were they smiling? Mm-hmm. How are they dressed? Mm-hmm. Were they dressed for success?
Right,
Or were
right.
they dressed like they didn't care about this job?
That's exactly right. Those are the key things.
So I would say those are the key contributors to what goes through my head initially. And obviously, I don't want to judge a book by its cover, especially with disability inclusion. We all know that you don't want to judge a book by its cover because that's going backwards. But those are some things that kind of catch my eye.
Yeah, very, very good. So, is there anything more I'm still amazed that you've taken this on.
I appreciate that.
I'm amazed. This, for the listening audience who's tuned in,
Yeah.
this is extremely challenging and hard work. You're putting your whole heart and soul in this, and I'm going to do the very best I can. Not that you need me to do that, but I'm so impressed with you. I want anyone in Oxford. Who is listening to this show to know that Kathy Johnson is going to be speaking to the Board of Education.
Oh, thank you.
She's going to be speaking to people she knows and taking your literature, because lots of times, people know I'm no shrinking violet, and I'm going to be blunt. Lots of times people, school systems, they're very comfortable in what they're doing. And let me be blunt. They're not thinking about the special needs. They're just something that's there that has to be done. I know that it's not everybody, but they focus in on the sports, the children that are succeeding, and parents. I was a parent. You want your child to get the best attention. And even from the state level on down with our governor, and I can say this and take the heat, our Governor Malloy, taking money away from every disabled person you can think of, because for the average person who's living their life and life is hunky-dory, those people are the people you don't see. And when you don't see those people, you decide in your mind that, oh, we have a great America, they're just being taken care of, don't worry. But the truth of the matter is they're not really being taken care of. They're an afterthought. They're a pain in everybody's side. Money spent for them. Why? Unless it's your own. And then suddenly, if it's in your own backyard, your innocence of life goes right down the drain, and you realize that the disabled in this country don't have it all that well. And the people that are supposedly on entitlements have, it's almost like pulling teeth to stay on those entitlements, even when you obviously need them. It's not the free ride that people think it is. It's horrible what families go through. And when a person like you comes along who understands it, believes it, feels it in their heart, and is actually you yourself disabled and starting your own business and trying to get others to pay attention to a wonderful thing you're doing, that's a lot of hard work.
I thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. A lot of things you said, sad, but sometimes true. The biggest key here is breaking down those misconceptions and those stereotypes to realize there's always ability beyond disability. It's not the stereotypical thoughts of that person's disabled, they can't. Many people jump to assumptions, and we all do it. A great example for me is, once again, and I know I've said it numerous times, I just like I have a disability, cerebral palsy. So I remember one time I was walking, I think it was a gas station. I was walking into a gas station, and I noticed somebody in a wheelchair was coming up, and I was going to be gracious enough to possibly hold the door. But in my head, I automatically assumed they couldn't do it. But in my training and being in my experiences, I almost hesitated, and I wasn't sure, well, do I hold the door? Are they they're probably very capable. And, the thing is take a step back and don't jump to assumptions, and just think that somebody can't do something.
Well, you bring an interesting point, and of course, an interesting point is that before I had my son injured,
Mm-hmm.
I would go into a restaurant, and if there was a Down syndrome person there, or somebody that was obviously a disability or what, I would feel very uncomfortable. I would not want to look. I would say sometimes when I left, because there might have been something in me that was in my soul, I'd say to the higher power, you've got to help me get past this. I'm too superficial. I'm too superficial. Well, when my son got hurt and he was in the hospital bed unconscious, I found myself putting pictures of him up all over the room of what he was like before his accident. I found myself trying to make sure people understood that he wasn't just that vegetable in a bed,
Yeah.
and not practically non-human anymore, that he had a life 2 days ago before the accident, and he was a person. Now, I'm not saying that that was done on, I don't believe the higher power does things on purpose to you, to other people, to teach you but it soon made me realize how others feel. And I don't think we have enough empathy in this world for those that are the least among us, or you can't see. And I just feel very emotional about what you do, and I was so glad to hear that you're doing it.
Thank you.
What are your plans from here? You have explained to me that you've just now started out.
Yes.
Now, that's a brave thing. You were working for a company.
Mm-hmm.
You've decided that you believe enough in yourself and presenting yourself. And quite frankly, of course, I probably am an easy sell, but if I had a business, I'd take 3 of your people. All right, right.
Thank you.
Right on. I'd take a dozen.
You hear that? She's endorsing me, ladies and
I'm
gentlemen.
endorsing you. Well, I don't. Well, you know what, Rich? I don't know how well that is, because I'm a political figure in Oxford right now, and I do take my knocks because I open my mouth. But at any rate, no, I am endorsing you. I would do that. I would do that. And so tell us now. You've left a secure situation.
Yes.
For whatever your reasons were. You've stepped out of what
Comfort zone, I guess you could say.
Your comfort zone, because even those of us who don't have a visible disability, at least, don't want to step out of our comfort zones. We've been at jobs for 15 years.
It's constant paycheck.
Oh, yeah.
And you're paying your bills. Many of the listeners, viewers, and in your own head, I'm sure you had dreams and aspirations, and I do too. And I was sitting there and I'm saying to myself, do I just want a paycheck, or do I really want to continue to make a difference more than what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And I don't want to look back 30 years from now and I am very confident that I would have been successful in anything I do. That's just because I'm confident in myself. But the reality is, would I wanted to do something different? And now
Yes.
I said, I have the opportunity. Let's go do this.
Yeah. I mean that is taking a leap of faith.
Yeah.
And taking on a situation that requires, as I said before, patience, perseverance, and that. Now,
you were asking, what am I doing now?
Yeah, what are you doing now? Yes, thank you for bringing me back to that.
No, of course. So meeting with you, just getting the message heard, as much exposure as possible. Reaching out on LinkedIn has been, great for me, connecting with like-minded individuals and always looking to collaborate, because the end goal is just inclusion overall. I don't care how it happens. I just want to make sure it happens. And lucky for me, I'd like to announce that I partnered up with a gentleman by the name of Jim Haas, and he is an author he has cerebral palsy as well. And he wrote a series of career readiness books for youth all the way up to adulthood on how to be career ready, working with parents to help their child be career ready. And I loved his message and his information that we've collaborated, and we're going to be doing a speaking tour.
Well, that's wonderful, and I can say that there's a lot of opportunities for speaking tours. I'm sure that you ferret out different organizations that do seminars and things
Exactly.
like that. So this is where your prior employer gave you a base to work from that way.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, I just can't. It's amazing. I was so glad that your name was brought to me, and so glad to meet you in Starbucks that day that we met. And I've always said that everyone has been given a gift, and that no matter, and I've used our governor, Malloy, as an example, because he made no bones about it, that when he was on his stump speech, and I heard his stump speech at least 3 times, that he had dyslexia, and that the university he went to become a lawyer rose to the occasion and gave him the tools he needed to be the lawyer and the man he is today.
Yeah.
And I have challenged him, and I will challenge him again on this program. While they're still trying to ruin the ABI waiver programs that my son is on in the state of Connecticut, I won't go into detail, that every person with a disability and every person that loves that person wants what his mother wanted for him, to allow their loved one to be the best they can be to the ability they have and be given the tools to do that, to be back into society despite a brain injury or a disability. Now, how he can take that away, and Department of Social Services can do that, to disabled people for a buck, I can tell you, because all it's about is money and how it appears to the average citizen who's going through life without a huge catastrophe or not living what we lived, how they can go through life and say, oh, this is a great country. We take care of these people. You know where some of them are? In human puppy mills. And quite frankly, they worry more about puppies in puppy mills than they do about the human beings in human puppy mills. And it appalls me. Having said that, this is not my program to
well, it is your program. Yeah.
But no, it is not my place to do this.
I
But
understand.
this gives me a segue off of what you're doing.
Yeah.
It is also America where people take the bull by the horns and do what needs to be done, which is wonderful. But it'd be wonderful if you could get a little help from your friends. You know, it'd be wonderful if
absolutely. And you know, and that some of the things you said, sadly resources are being cut, and that's another reason why, you know, I think that what I'm doing is essential. I want to be there to help the families and the organizations that are slowly, you know, losing that funding, to assist them in being more innovative on the ways maybe that they do things to help complement the cuts and things of that nature.
Well, that's right. I mean, they say a lot of on the far right will say, you know, to be doers, do it yourself. Well, here we have a person in this chair now that is doing. He's an entrepreneur. He's everything. He's doing it himself. He's showing us how he can pull himself up and help others and do a good job. Now the problem is, how do you get in the doors? And how do you get people to feel it in their hearts and want to pay attention to what you're doing? I mean, tell me how you're going to do that.
Well,
I'm easy.
That's one of the toughest things. If I was recommending or talking to somebody, maybe a family member who's trying to help their child or somebody they know get employment, I would think the first step is to try to identify an individual within a company or somebody. It's all about who you know, networking. If you already have a relationship built, or if you don't, identify somebody within similar shoes. I believe the stats say now there's about 20 million Americans who know of or have somebody in their family with a disability. So there are people out there. And if you could hit the right strings with somebody who shares your passion within certain roles, the message gets funneled easier. And so that's one step. The other thing is, if you aren't able to have that, it's to build a portfolio maybe for your son or your daughter and sell the abilities first. Once again, meet with the company, talk to the companies, identify if your child is a good fit for this position.
Yes.
Because sometimes families have blinders on. My son or daughter needs a job. No, they'll be good in this job. They'll be good in this job.
All they want to do is get them, you know, can you hold the thought?
Absolutely.
Okay. I know one thing, that you get very afraid. And the first thing you want is you want your child to be viewed, or your loved one, as normal as possible. So what you want is get him out there, show people he can work. You don't want to let go of the idea that life will never be the same.
Yeah.
You want that person to be like everybody else. And every obstacle is up there to not allow you to do it. You give a person that hope.
Yeah, and that's great. You know, you want to you don't want to doubt the individual, and you want to make sure that they have every opportunity, but you also, sometimes it can hinder the individual if you throw them into circumstances that they are not really ready for, or if they're not a good fit for. So you know, a parent, I completely understand where they're coming from, but sometimes they need to do it a little slower or take a step back and realize, is this actually a good fit? And maybe they don't go 20 hours. Okay, the opening's for 20 hours a week for this job. Maybe 10 hours is the best for them, and see if that could be cut down or a fit.
You're absolutely right, because you want it fast.
Yeah.
You want to feel normal fast.
Yeah, and
You know, and I'll tell you what else, as a parent of someone that needed help and still does. You want to grab a person like you as if you're an anchor,
yeah,
as if you're out at sea, and finally there's somebody where there's hope. I have a dream that one day I can call you up and tell you I have my son, and he doesn't need the damn DSS, and I don't have to fill out paperwork every year for him and be caught in a bureaucracy that drives me out of my mind to make sure he's okay and what's going to happen to him when I'm not here.
Yeah.
Because there's not a one of them I can trust. I hope there's a day that I can call you, Rich, on the phone and say, my Robert is ready. He doesn't need these people anymore. He doesn't need the government anymore because we aren't Donald Trump and billionaires. I want you, and I want him in a real job all on his own.
Yeah, and I hope that too, and I think your son is well on his way, by the way, too.
He is.
I heard great things. Now, but sadly, for some families, they want that, but to be realistic, that might not be the case.
Right.
And so understanding what is attainable and is not attainable. I'm not saying that you can't think positive and give benchmarks to things to reach, but you want to make sure that the things that you are striving for your son or daughter are realistic, or at least, like I said, small steps and attainable steps. So one thing, I wrote a blog a while back about the definition of success, and I kind of argued there is no exact definition of success. I Googled actually the definition, and it said, prosperity, reaching certain heights, and the reality is, what I argue is, each definition of success is individualized.
That's right. That's right. Now, I'm hearing from my producer, we have about 5 minutes, but that's a lot of time on. We still have, that's a good block.
Okay, good.
But we'll be wrapping it up soon. But but what you do give someone like me is hope.
Absolutely.
Hope. I mean, you're right. I'm very fortunate that Robert may actually attain that point, and others won't. But there's hope out there. I just want everybody to know that if I could shake loose the safety net,
yes,
I would do it tomorrow. It's too much trouble. It's too hard to keep it going. It's agony.
Well, and like you said, all these different departments, and it's overwhelming, the steps and the hoops that you need to jump through to make sure you attain these services. So the biggest thing I would say to your listeners is to really research and get somebody like myself to advocate. You need and advocate for the services that you need, and because maybe you might not need them 100% now, but down the road you may.
That's right.
As maybe you're a parent that's actually taking full-time care of the individual, and you will not always be there. We're not always going to be there to make sure that the services and things are aligned so that when they are needed, they're ready.
They're ready, and that's right. Now, we're going to be wrapping this up very soon. But is there something lastly that you want our audience to know, especially the easiest, quickest way? We've been putting up the graphics periodically, but the easiest, quickest way for them to get a hold of you, and I want everyone to know that in a couple of weeks this won't just be on Channel 10 Comcast Friday night at 7, but it'll also be up on YouTube at any time, and I advertise that on Facebook, but you certainly can advertise it yourself too.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So
the best way to reach me would be my website, ttwinfo.com. That's ttwinfo.com, or my phone, 203-231-6835.
Let's say it again.
That's 203-231-6835.
Rich, that's absolutely wonderful. Is there anything we've left out? Anything more? Well, let's talk. We've got a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about some people will say we're not going to talk about money and all that, but there's different fundings and different ways to do this. But I want to talk to you. Mm-hmm. I want to tell you I have some group that's disabled. Now, obviously, you have to earn a living.
Yes.
How does that work?
So what I normally say is, an initial meet and greet to assess a possible relationship, there is no cost to that. But when it comes to identifying, and we come to the table after I assess our meeting and understanding your needs, I would come to the table and say that there are packages available.
Packages available, and then you can explain all that.
Yeah.
So what I would say to the audience now is that you get a hold of Rich and talk it over with him.
Yeah.
And anyone listening that has someone out there that is in need, it would behoove you to contact Rich or call me, Kathy Johnson. I'll get you in touch with Rich. Kathy Johnson, and most everybody knows where to find me, but you can always leave a message at Oxford Town Hall. They'll take some of my messages as a minority selectman. So
I thank you for that.
You're welcome, and I will funnel it out to you, because right now Rich is trying to make contacts and build his business and build his organization, and that's great. So now I will say we just about have a half a minute left.
Okay.
And I will say to I like to mention Wayne once in a while, because I kicked the poor guy around. For 46 years I've been kicking him around, even longer than that, 50 years since I've met him and all. So I'm going to say to Wayne that I'm getting ready to say goodbye, so we're all set. So I'm going to say thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure, Rich, and I'm going to say have a good evening and a better tomorrow. And we'll see you from Town Talk. Thank you.